and seed funding. So all you need to do is just apply, and definitely your application will be taken up.
Some of the startups are requesting for an email ID. If there's any email ID you would like to share in the chat box, that'll be really helpful, Dr. Sanyal.
Yeah, I'll do that. So yeah.
Great, wonderful. With that, we would like to take this opportunity on behalf of Indian Chamber of Commerce to thank Dr. Subhranshu Sanyal, CEO and Calcutta Incubation Center, for his sharing his insights on an incubator's view in regards to government support to startup. Thank you so much for joining the session today. It was really a delightful session.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We now move on to the next session, which is a very interesting topic: future of Indian fintech sector in the global startup economy. And to share deep expertise, we have with us Ms. Sirisha Waraganti. She is the Managing Director of JP Morgan Chase. Ms. Sirisha leads architecture, data and digital technology for consumer and community banking, CCB, at JP Morgan Chase. She's based out of India at the moment. She brings 29 plus years of global executive experience spanning across research labs, product engineering, strategy, mergers and acquisitions, business development, and consulting across public and private sectors. Most recently, she was the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of Architecture and Shared Services for MasterCard and led MasterCard India. She was the first Group Executive Leader in Technology for MasterCard outside the US. We are truly honored to have Ms. Sirisha joining us today. Thank you so much for taking our time. Request you to please take the session ahead. Over to you.
Thanks so much, for the very kind words. So yeah, the topic that I have this afternoon is the future of Indian fintech sector in the global startup economy. And like Dr. Sanyal has just mentioned, the time has never been better before. The many reasons for that, right? The way I'm going to split my conversation today is into three parts. Part one, I'll really talk about the opportunity in the financial sector and why fintechs and where fintechs actually play a role. And second, talk about the opportunities for the fintechs themselves, and then get into talking a little about India and the Indian fintech ecosystem, and finally end off with the big opportunities that there are in this sector and segment for the fintechs, and why banks like ourselves are constantly looking at the fintech to drive cutting edge innovation and bring in niche services. So with that, I mean, just a landscape of the financial services sector globally, right? This sector drives close to a fifth or more of the global GDP. And that's huge, just to show you the might of the segment. Close to $5+ trillion get traded on a daily basis in currency. In addition to that, we're talking about millions of jobs that the sector actually entails, again, globally. Now, when we talk about the opportunity, what are the segments that we are talking about? It is the investment banking that all of us are aware of, whether it is management of payroll, it is private equity, VC funding, asset management, cross-border payments, multiple that we have in that particular segment. There still is a huge opportunity, though we have global banks, we have governmental policies, etc. There is still a very, very huge opportunity that there is in this segment, primarily because of the challenges that have been driven socially and economically across many countries across the globe. And even in the US, I mean, it's still a very cash-heavy economy, and there is still a huge opportunity from a digital transformation standpoint. The opportunity that there is for all of us to look at globally is close to $2+ billion, 2+ billion people that are in the unbanked and the underbanked segment. If we look at the household debt, that's close to about $61 trillion, right? And in terms of the working age adults without retirement assets, that's close to $100+ million. In addition to that, I mean, in the latest, whether it is COVID driven or before, we've seen a lot of increase around fraud. And the there is an opportunity of $22.8 billion in annual card fraud losses that we're seeing. And it's just not these opportunities, right? There are also opportunities around tech that we see big time. There is up to 25% of a number of the banking functions today need to be automated. So that's big room for opportunity as far as the fintechs are concerned. In addition to that, there is a constant growth that we see about the push for opening international bank accounts driven by globalization. Tracking international regulatory changes, that's another big one with many countries in play and so many changes across each of these demographics. Managing domestic and cross-border payments, again, is huge considering, the global travel as well as investments that are happening across the globe. Billing collections continues to be an opportunity of growth. In addition to all of this, right, we've also seen this trend of companies that are global coming in local, as well as companies that are local going global. Now, one of the classic examples that we have seen and why this becomes important is understanding local culture and consumer behavior is becoming more and more important, as well as creating local business network to bring in additional sales. One of the recent examples that you and me, are well aware of in this particular market is the Walmart acquisition of Flipkart. While we've seen Amazon having to grow everything organically, Walmart's acquisition proved the fact that, there was this company in India. If they wanted to make a huge footprint into India, this acquisition made a lot of sense. So you'll see more and more of that because there is so much global consolidation that is happening across the big tech. And I'll talk about that a little later, as well as a lot of consolidation that we're seeing locally with top players in this market as well, whether it's the Reliance and the Tatas, and a number of players that we have. So with that, for stage setting, let me talk a little about fintech. And what is fintech? All of you, of course, aware of it, but I'd like to start my session with a definition of what fintech, according to me, is. Fintech, in short, is really financial technology, and it is primarily the innovative use of technology in the design and delivery of financial services. And it is primarily, and why is it as important, and why are we speaking about it today? If we look at the global market for fintech, that's huge. We're talking about $28+ trillion of opportunity that there is in the market. And that's the reason you see so many players interested in it, and not just, at the innovation at the edge, but there's also a lot of consolidation. And that's why many of the big tech, as well as large players like ourselves, the big banks and many others are interested in this space. And how have we seen the growth of this segment, right? Though 2021 has actually seen a slight dip in the investments of fintech, maybe because of COVID, but the number of deals have actually increased 52%. That is to show that there is a lot of interest and the segment is booming at this point in time. And it truly is, because it's and it is not just products, it's not just technologies, it's also about business models and in the way financial services are delivered. So there's so much to fintech, as well as some, and I'll call out some of the technologies in a bit. So fintech really is revolutionizing, as I said, the banking industry, and really giving millions of people access to financial services for the first time. And we're seeing that in our country, with many of the initiatives that the government has taken, and I'll speak a bit about that as well. The new banking models that are emerging with the fintech and startups, and some of the areas of key interest to these fintechs are primarily around AI, ML. It could peer-to-peer lending, and I'm talking primarily from a financial services sector standpoint. Big data continues to be of interest, with a lot of consolidation, additional data, many more players coming into the market, crowdfunding, digital payments, huge, robo-advisors, to just name a few. And what are we looking at? Faster, quicker, better, safer payments, right? And every time we've had a crisis, and in this case, the global pandemic that we've seen, many of the big institutions like ourselves are having to look at, there's been an increased fraud and risk, as you know, it's gone up 600 times or 600 percentage points in the recent months. And that calls for a lot that we have to do around that. And so innovation is probably not topmost on our mind. And that's where we see the fintechs playing a big part. Right. And so we've seen, and for the past couple of years, we've seen many companies like, say, Airbnb, Uber, WhatsApp, WeChat, and many more making inroads into some of the, nuances that they bring to the table as far as better services for customers are concerned. And the millennial customer, and we've seen, right, a 20-odd% increase in the customer base, primarily because of the millennials. And these people are truly looking for easier experiences that can be provided. So if they are on Facebook or on Amazon for a large part of their time, or on WeChat, they would look for creation of these super apps where they can do, they can probably look at investments, they can do book doctor's appointments, order a taxi, pretty much do everything within the remit of the application itself. And that's also pushing, the fintech culture across. And if I look at the room that all of us are in just now, I'm sure each one of us, at least at any given point in time in the day, uses at least two services that are being provided by fintechs, whether it is for transfer of money or financial planning, borrowing, insurance, what have you. And what are the biggest markets that we see and opportunities that we see are India and China, really leading the way in terms of having more than half of the world's customer base. So that's why, the Indian fintech becomes extremely, extremely important, considering, the changes that are happening globally. Right, as well as just the consumer base that we have. Now, there are other things that are happening too, which are pushing, pushing us towards increased dependency around the fintechs, as well as the opportunity for the fintechs. Right, we've seen the device itself, a huge amount of movement with respect to innovation on the device, networks providing more and more bandwidth, 3G to 4G to 5G today, in terms of just the data that's available there. And that's creating more and more opportunities for the fintech. So the physical and the digital worlds actually converging is actually helping us push or move away from a world beyond cash, as well as a world beyond plastic. And what I see is that every connected device is becoming a device for commerce. And that's where we have the whole connected commerce thing, playing an extremely big part, whether it is your refrigerator, your smart TV, or your gaming systems, or what have you, your connected car. Each of these is actually becoming a device to make and receive payments. Right, and it is pushing connected commerce in a big way, and that's what's leading to additional innovation that we actually see in this segment. And any device, like if we use it once with these newer applications, we tend to want to use it more and more and never get off it. Right, whether it is tap and pay, we've seen that with tap and pay, and now we see that with the FASTag. Right, so I'm just talking about getting used to a newer feature and an easier experience, and how you get hooked onto it. So you would like to use FASTag more and more because it reduces the traffic jams at every one of those toll booths. And so for consumers too, when these fintechs are providing newer experiences, they're getting hooked onto it and want more and more of these services. So that's the reason it's an opportunity for the entire ecosystem to tap into and work together to be able to monetize these particular services. In addition to this, on the tech side, and I mentioned mentioned this earlier on. So it's not the at the edge services alone, but from a tech side too, there are huge opportunities. When we talk about faster, quicker, better, cheaper, and so on, there's much that's happening on the back end technology, whether it is architecture, whether it is management of data, whether it is management of infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So multiple things are happening there too, right? Infrastructure on demand with all the move to cloud and things like that, where all of us are not able to manage these very expensive, infrastructure that we are sitting on. The same with, looking at solutions around architecture on code. Architecture is code. Data and many things around data management. It could be for better archival of data, better ingestion of data, things like data mesh for really unlocking the analytical data at scale, or whether it is data on edge, which is primarily looking at edge computing, where you are trying to bring computation and the data storage closer to devices. All these are huge opportunities, that the fintech segments have. And closer home, right? Many of the government policies, which I think Dr. Sanyal just covered before me, are opening up more inroads for the fintech. So if it is things like, say, basically solving for identity, for instance, in the form of Aadhaar, which has actually reduced middlemen in the whole payment process. Or if we're talking about getting everyone a bank account or equivalent to store money. Thirdly, really looking at a scalable platform to move money like UPI or IMPS and so on. And well, we're aware of how UPI has actually revolutionized payments for the masses and has created actually, I think, a slew of opportunities for fintechs in this part of the world. And finally, allowing banks and fintechs and wealth or insurance or lending players to access platforms like UPI and DigiLocker to innovate. So this framework in India, I believe, has actually led to the revolution and the boom of fintech in this part of the world. This, in addition to the recent sandbox environment that RBI has opened up, I think is only a creation of a larger opportunity here. Now, why is, again, India as attractive as it is? I talked about the global fintech market and the value that is there. In India, too, this market has a huge opportunity. We're talking about close to $150 to $160 billion of opportunity for the fintech by 2025. And, these are primarily, and the top areas that I believe that there would be are payments is continue to lead the way, lending, and payments has increased substantially, as you've seen. I mean, with COVID, I think it's only accentuated digital payments and the entire digital transformation there. But I believe it's going to continue to grow till 2025 and beyond as well. Lending, wealth tech is also going to be big as far as one of the key areas and drivers for Indian fintech is concerned. Data privacy is going to increase, with the sort of channels that we now have open, with the movement to the cloud. I think there are going to be more and more rules and regulations that we will see, and with many of these players like Facebook, etc., coming into the remit of wanting to acquire spaces, there's going to be more and more around data privacy that there will be. And there is also a lot of aggregation that I spoke about, right? So the account aggregation frameworks, etc., there's going to be much innovation in each of those areas. And we'll also see increased regulatory, push that the government will actually. So as the markets open up, as the opportunities increase, there's going to be a lot more regulation that will come in as well, whether it is in the areas of insurance, equity trading, pension funds, and just to name a few. So that's going to increase substantially. Some of the recent trends that have happened as far as Indian startups are concerned, which I think is very, very exciting for many of you sitting in the room today, is many of our startups or, startups that were have gone global. So I've seen, guys like Ola, Oyo, Paytm, Zomato, just to name a few, have gone global with looking for other countries and avenues where they can either invest in or extend their services to. So that, I think, is basically a huge opportunity that the fintechs have at this point in time, and that's the reason I believe the sector is as interesting as it is. Now, to continue on that vector and tell you about where we are as a firm and what we are looking at as well is, if you look at JP Morgan too, I mean, we have close to about 9 acquisitions that we've made, and some of them are in the very recent past, and some of them are still consolidating as we speak. And these primarily into payments, the investment tech, healthcare. So you see banks like ourselves too, getting into segments like healthcare and so on. About 9 acquisitions, close to 230 plus investments that the bank has made in various segments. Now that said, and I'll before I end, I do want to talk about all the opportunities that there are for fintechs. I've named some spaces. But what do I see as trends which are going to grow to 2025? Transactions will continue to be touchless. So any areas of innovation there, would be very, very exciting for companies like ourselves. Finance will actually double down on, say, business insights, personalization, more of that happening, and everything in real time. So, whether it's real-time payments, reporting, so on and so forth, I think those are going to become big. So, better authentication techniques, etc., that you have will be super helpful. Self-service is going to continue to be the norm. There are, of course, newer operating models for merchants, for consumers. We also see a huge boom in data that I talked about, right? So in terms of data standardization, proliferation, better archival methods, etc., going to continue to be top of mind for many. So I see these as being the big trends. And to answer the question that we started off with, the future of the Indian fintech sector in the global startup economy, all I have to say is it has never been better. And I believe there's an extremely good future for our companies as we get into newer and newer segments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Voroganti. I think that was a really amazing session. In fact, you touched upon some of the very crucial aspects which we are also scheduled to cover tomorrow. Tomorrow, the day is all about fintech, where we are talking about banking and insurance. SEBI is talking about the sandbox, which you just mentioned. We also have a session from on ideation to IPO. But your session was truly insightful. Thank you so much on behalf of Indian Chamber of Commerce to join this session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure. We move on to the next power-packed, truly global session on startups. We have with us experts joining from across the world, multiple time zones, and I'm sure all the startups are very excited for this session. Let me take this opportunity to introduce all the speakers and the moderator for the event. I would like to start with Mr. William Bao Bean, the general partner at SOSV. Mr. Bean is a general partner at SOSV. SOSV is the third most active venture capital investor in the world, number 7 in India, number 6 in Singapore, and number 8 in Southeast Asia, with over $990 million under management. He's the managing director of China Accelerator, the first accelerator to launch in Asia, and the only program in Asia to have a unicorn. He's also founder and managing director of Mox, a mobile internet platform with 93 million monthly active smartphone users in the ecosystem, providing invested companies with free advertising. Thank you so much, Mr. William Bao Bean, to join this session.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, William. We have with us Dr. Apuru Ranjan Sharma, co-founder and president, Venture Catalyst and 9 Unicorn. Dr. Sharma leads the India's first integrated incubator. Venture Catalyst has been ranked the world's third largest incubator and early stage investor by TechCrunch in 2019, and now number